Hi everyone, this is Yana, and today I will be working with a stamp set from Waffle Flower. I have a stamp set called Loved. It's a beautiful set. It's one of those, like building type stamp sets. You have a bunch of different individual stamps that go well together and help you create a scene or a scenery or something like that. And there is a matching die set that goes with the stamp set. You have a little bow die, then you have the two flower dies, the smaller and the larger one, and then you have a little greenery die. And I have already been playing with those. Here I have a few of the elements die cut. However, today, for today's card, I'm not going to be using the dies. I will only be working with the stamps from this set. Now, to create my card today, I will be using a little bit of masking, some very basic masking, and a ton of different stamping. Now, to do most of my stamping, I'm going to be using these Memento Dewdrop inks from Tsukineko, and I have some different colors here. So I have a gray, then I have some lilac posies, sweet plum, pear tart, elderberry, and bamboo leaves. And I will also be using the black ink to do my sentiment stamping and to stamp this pretty oval frame. Now, I will be working on some white cardstock. I already made a white top folding, an A2 top folding card, and I'm going to actually tape it shut. I like to tape my cards shut so that they don't, so that I don't have to lay them flat on my work surface. And I also like to tape them down to my work surface so that it doesn't move while I'm working. Now I am using some repositionable adhesive. This is not a permanent, it's a repositionable adhesive. Okay, now before I start working on my stamping, I need to create some masks. I'm going to use some printer paper, some thin office paper for this. I'm going to stamp this oval frame on my paper, and I'm going to cut it out with my scissors. So my masks are ready. I basically just stamped this image 3 times on my thin office paper, and then I cut it out with my scissors. Now notice that I have that I not only cut the oval, I also cut out a flower and the leaf, and I have 2 masks like this, and then I have one with just the flower. Basically, you don't need to cut the flower and the leaf out. You can just skip that and maybe, cut the leaf out separately, or you can use the die to die cut the flower and use that as a mask. But since I was already cutting this out, I thought that I might as well cut the flower and the leaves out. And we are going to need 3 masks. Well, actually we can just use 1, but in order to work faster, I did make 3 masks for my stamping. Okay, now I'm going to use this same image again. I'm going to stamp it 3 times on my card front. I'm going to alternate the angle of my stamped image. Some are going to be stamped partially, and then I'm going to have one stamped completely on my work surface, or excuse me, on my card. So basically I'm stamping this oval frame diagonally, and I have 2 stamped partially and then 1 in the top part stamped completely. Now I'm going to mask my images, and in order for my masks to stay in place, I'm going to use some repositionable adhesive, and I'm going to keep my masks here while I'm working on my background. Now I'm going to stamp some images to create a background. I don't want my background to be white. I want to add some sentiments or some stamping to it. So I'm going to use this Loved sentiment, and I'm also going to use this XOXO and stamp like a little border here at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to grab this XOXO. I'm going to align it on my clear block, and I'm using a clear block with grid lines. I think that this helps me to have my stamping straight, so that I don't have to add any pencil marks or anything like that. Basically, I'm just going to stamp this XOXO in a line, or actually in a few lines at the bottom of my card base. Okay, so now I have this XOXO border at the bottom of my card, and I wasn't worried about overlapping any of the images here. After I add color to my card, it's not really going to show through, so that's why I only masked the larger solid images, the oval and the flower and the leaf. And I'm not worried about the greenery and the little flowers that I have here. Now I'm going to stamp the loved on my background, just as I have the XOXO, and once again I'm using this gray ink from Tsukineko to do my stamping. I don't want it to look too dark, so that's why I decided to use gray instead of black or another vibrant color. And I'm going to overlap the XO with the loved slightly. So I'm using the grid lines of my clear block to make sure that my stamping is straight. Okay, so my background is completely done. Now I can move on to coloring my little images that I have here. And I'm going to use the matching solid stamps that are in this loved stamp set. I'm going to use a few of the brighter colors of the ink that I have here. So I have some sweet plum, lilac posies, elderberry, and then I have the green colors for my leaves. So I'm going to start with the berries, and I'm just going to stamp them in this lilac posies color. And then I'm going to use this elderberry color. Now, because these smaller branches are so small, I wanted to use darker colors to make sure that they would stand out from the background and, you know, will be really visible on my background. Okay, and I'm going to use this smaller flowers. I'm going to stamp this one, and I'm going to use probably the sweet plum color. Now I am using dye inks for this, but you can also use pigment inks if you wanted. I, however, prefer using dye inks for this because they don't make my stamps as dirty, and I'm able to align my stamping better. So, you know, this is just a matter of preference. If you like using pigment inks, and if you're okay with working with pigment inks on such small areas, just go ahead and use those. Okay, and finally I have the greenery and then another flower here. So I'm just going to grab that. So now this background starts to look really pretty. You know, I have some of the pinks, and then I have a darker pink or more of a purple, dark purple color. And I'm going to add the green color to my card, to my design. I just need to find my clear block, okay? So I'm going to use the Pear Tart for my greenery. Now, and because I have my masks on my card, I don't have to worry about messing up any of my stamping. You know, I put it there at the beginning and I still have them. I haven't taken them off. Okay, and I just need to add the stamps of my little flowers. I'm going to make them a little bit darker green, so I'm using the bamboo leaves color. There's one more little flower that I need to stamp, or a little stem, and it's this one with the little berries. And once again, I'm using the darker green to do my stamping. Okay, now I need to take off my masks so that I will be able to stamp the leaves and the larger flowers. Now you can save these masks for later and just cut separate masks for for the leaves or for the ovals, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut the flower off, and I have one without the leaf, so I'm good there. Okay, so I'm going to take this mask, place it here, and stamp my leaf. I'm going to use the lighter green, or actually no, the darker green for my leaf. And I really like stamp sets like this, you know, where you can play and build your images and color them. You can actually use, if you didn't want to use the matching solid images, you could use your Copic markers or distress markers to color in the images, but I really like using those matching solid stamps from the stamp sets to color the images. Now, in the same way, I'm going to use this mask without the flower, and I'm going to mask off my ovals, and I'm going to use the lilac posies color to stamp my flower, as I want to add some pink color to my card. And once again, I need to be very careful to align my stamping. And if you're having a hard time aligning your stamps, try to look for some, like special indentations or something. So here, I have this little tiny petal. So I look for that tiny petal, and there's only one tiny petal like this on my stamp. So I look for that tiny petal, and I'm able to align my stamp properly. So if you're having a hard time aligning your stamps, just try to look for something, unique on a stamp. Okay, now I can take my mask off, and I pretty much have my card done. I just simply need to add my my main sentiment to oval frames, and my card will be complete. So to do my stamping, or to add my sentiment, I'm going to use this UR. So I want to stamp the "You Are Loved." I'm going to use black ink to do that stamping. Now I am once again aligning that sentiment on my clear block using the grid lines. I need to stamp this first because this love is sort of like it goes at an angle, and I'm afraid I might not be able to stamp it straight. So first I'm going to stamp this "You Are." Okay, and then I'm going to add this "Loved." You could also use different colors of ink to do this stamping, but because I already have a bunch of colors on my card, I wanted to add the stamping in black and emphasize it as much as I can. Okay, now I'm also going to stamp the same "You Are Loved" and all the other oval frames. Now, there are some other images in this stamp set that you can use to complete your card. I really like, well, first of all, there are these flower centers that you can stamp, and I'm going to do that in a minute here. But also there are some little hearts that you can use. There's a little bracket that you can use to complete your stamping. So I'm going to use the smaller heart, and I'm going to stamp it in a few areas on my card. So I'm going to stamp it like so, and then I want to add a couple of like highlights to my stamping, so I'm just going to stamp it around each of the oval frames in a few spots, and this completes my card. So now I can just remove it from my work surface. I need to go wash my hands, and then I can rub off the repositionable adhesive. So I can now just flip my card, rub off the repositionable adhesive. Okay, now if you wanted to, you could also add some enamel dots or sequins or like a little metallic decor or something to your card, but I think I'm going to keep it as is. I really like these one-layer cards lately. I think I'm obsessed with them, so I'm going to keep this super simple and super flat. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. If you're looking for a list of supplies to create this card, you can find it below in the video description or on my blog.